The storm hit without warning, ripping through the night sky like an angry beast, shaking the tiny boat as if it were nothing more than a child's toy. Waves taller than houses collided, crashing against the vessel with bone-shattering force. Jonah Mercer gripped the railing until his knuckles turned white, the salty spray stinging his face. He had faced deadlines, hostile clients, and endless office politics, but nothing in his 34 years had prepared him for this. In the chaos, he barely noticed the figure beside him. His boss, the enigmatic yet intimidating Morgan Vale, who had always seemed untouchable in the office, now shivering and clutching the deck as the boat was tossed like a leaf in a hurricane. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the storm subsided. Jonah awoke, coughing, to the soft golden light of dawn spilling across a stretch of untouched white sand. The waves lapped gently at the shore, incongruously calm after the night's terror. He looked around, dazed, heart pounding, only to see Morgan Vale crawling from the wreckage nearby, soaked and bruised. Neither of them spoke at first. The silence was heavy, broken only by the soft crash of waves. Jonah realized with a jolt that they were alone, completely, terrifyingly alone on a deserted island. If you believe in second chances and the quiet, miraculous power of kindness, pause for a moment to like this video, share it, comment below, and subscribe to Stories of Kindness. Sometimes, stories like this remind us of the humanity hiding in plain sight. Jonah helped Morgan to his feet, their hands brushing briefly, sending an unspoken reassurance through both of them. The island was beautiful, almost painfully so. Towering palms swayed over soft sands, birds of every hue called from the treetops, and a small, sparkling stream promised fresh water. But beauty was useless when survival was at stake. Their initial attempts to signal for help failed miserably. They built makeshift shelters from driftwood and palm leaves, scavenged what they could from the wreckage, and Jonah quickly realized that Morgan, despite the polished exterior he wore at work, was utterly unprepared for survival. Days blurred into each other. The sun was relentless, and the nights brought chilling loneliness. Jonah found himself reflecting on his life as a single father, the laughter of his daughter, Ava, the small victories of raising her alone after losing his wife, and the quiet evenings when it was just the two of them against the world. He missed her more than he had ever imagined he could miss anyone. But now, facing the raw, merciless elements with Morgan, he discovered something surprising, an empathy he had never expected for the man who had often demanded perfection in his office. Morgan, too, began to show cracks beneath his stern facade. There were nights when he would stare at the horizon, silent tears glinting in his eyes. One evening, after a day of foraging for food that had yielded nothing but frustration, Morgan turned to Jonah, voice low and trembling. "Jonah, if no one comes, if we stay here forever, will you stay with me?" The question hit Jonah like a wave, unexpected and fragile. He wanted to laugh at the absurdity, to dismiss it as desperation, but the raw vulnerability in Morgan's eyes stopped him. This wasn't office politics. This wasn't about climbing the ladder or meeting targets. This was about two human beings, stripped of pretense, seeking comfort in the most impossible of situations. For weeks, they worked side by side, learning the rhythms of the island. Jonah taught Morgan how to fish in the shallow coral reefs, how to light a fire without matches, how to carve shelter from fallen trees. In turn, Morgan shared his meticulous planning skills, his ability to ration, organize, and think ahead, which saved them from numerous pitfalls. Slowly, admiration blossomed into something deeper, a companionship forged in adversity, the kind of bond that no office, hierarchy, or social pretense could ever cultivate. Jonah began to see Morgan not as a boss or authority figure, but as someone human, profoundly human, and someone he wanted to protect as fiercely as he would protect his own daughter. The nights were the hardest. With no sound but the waves and their own breathing, Jonah felt his loneliness as acutely as he had ever felt it. He would sit by the fire, listening to Morgan's soft murmurs of regret for the life they'd left behind, and imagine Ava waiting at home, unaware that her father was trapped on a distant island. Jonah had promised her he would always keep her safe, and the thought of failing her gnawed at him, even as he realized that this unexpected companionship with Morgan was saving him in ways he hadn't anticipated. Then came the day when they spotted a distant ship. Excitement surged in their hearts, followed by the cruel sting of despair as the vessel passed, oblivious to their frantic signals. Jonah sank to his knees, exhausted, and Morgan placed a hand on his shoulder. "We'll survive," Morgan said softly, not with the commanding tone of a CEO, but with the tender insistence of someone who had come to care deeply. "We're stronger than we think. Together." And Jonah realized, with a pang of bittersweet understanding, that this island, terrifying and isolated as it was, had become a crucible for courage and honesty. Jonah found himself laughing for the first time in days as they discovered a grove of coconuts. Morgan's clumsy attempts to climb trees were both infuriating and endearing, and Jonah felt a strange warmth in his chest, a warmth he hadn't felt in years, buried under exhaustion and the relentless responsibilities of fatherhood. He realized that survival wasn't just about food or shelter, it was about connection, trust, and shared hope. One evening, as the sky ignited in a blaze of orange and pink, Jonah and Morgan sat by the fire, sharing stories of their lives before the island. Jonah spoke of Ava, of the quiet pride in her laughter, of the grief that had once threatened to crush him. Morgan spoke of his own childhood, of loneliness behind the polished exterior, of the fear of failure that had driven him to demand perfection. In those moments, the island seemed to shrink around them, leaving only two souls laid bare, free from pretense and artifice. Then Morgan spoke the words again, softer this time, almost a whisper over the waves. "Jonah, if no one comes, would you stay?" Jonah's heart ached at the vulnerability in that simple question. He realized that he too had changed. He no longer saw Morgan as a boss or authority figure, but as someone whose life had become entwined with his own in the most profound way. And in that quiet, intimate acknowledgement of shared humanity, Jonah answered, not with words, but with a steady hand reaching out to Morgan, a gesture that said, "We survive together, whatever comes." Time passed differently on the island. Hours and days became inseparable, measured only by the sun's journey and the tide's rhythms. Jonah and Morgan adapted, found solace in routine, laughter in small triumphs, and companionship in the vast silence of their surroundings. The fear of never being rescued lingered, but it was tempered by the realization that they were no longer alone in the emotional sense. There was a bond forged in adversity, a quiet acknowledgement that even in the absence of the world they knew, life had found a way to weave connection from the most unlikely threads. Finally, on a golden afternoon, as Jonah was scanning the horizon with a makeshift telescope, a speck of movement caught his eye. He squinted, heart hammering, and then saw it, a small plane, a distant but unmistakable sign of civilization. Morgan gasped beside him, eyes wide with disbelief, and for the first time in weeks they allowed themselves to imagine rescue. The years of office tension, the personal battles each had fought alone, faded into insignificance against the immense relief of knowing they might survive this ordeal together. As the plane drew closer, Jonah looked at Morgan, and in that instant, all the unspoken words, all the shared struggles and quiet moments seemed to crystallize into something undeniable. This island had changed them both, stripped them bare, and revealed the depths of human connection, courage, and compassion. Jonah felt a swell of emotion, tears threatening, as he realized that he had discovered not only a companion in Morgan, but a reflection of his own resilience and capacity for care. Before they left the island, Jonah took a moment to carve a small symbol in the sand, a heart entwined with the initials of their names. It was a quiet commemoration, a reminder of what they had endured, what they had learned, and the bond that had grown in the most unexpected of circumstances. If this story touched your heart, if you believe that even in the darkest storms we can find connection and hope, please take a moment to like this video, comment below, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness and courage can flourish anywhere. As they boarded the rescue boat, Jonah glanced back at the island, feeling a strange tug of farewell. It had been a place of terror and despair, yet also of discovery and profound humanity. Morgan looked at him, a soft, unguarded smile on his face, and whispered, "Thank you for staying." Jonah smiled back, knowing that this shared ordeal would bind them forever, a testament to resilience, unexpected companionship, and the enduring power of the human heart.